Hi, my name is Steve.
And my name is Parris Lilly. I am a content creator for Gamertag Radio and Kind of Funny, and I talk a lot on Twitter.
Twitter's my favorite part of that sentence. I also like how for a second it looked like you were to forget your last name. I'm Parris. What was that again? Paris, France? I can't remember.
Parris Lilly. That is my name.
I've been doing this for a minute now, and I have not gotten to bring someone on here yet who is like the professional of the talking world to your level yet. So
I am not a professional at all. That I appreciate the kind of words. That's
says
funny
the
to me,
Xbox host himself. Okay, well, listen. That's what we're here today to talk about, is just get an insight into how did you get to this great place in this world, and, you know, to teach the people out there who are listening some of the tips and tricks that you've gotten along the way. But before we get to that, I always like to start at the beginning. Parris, tell me about yourself. Where do you come from? What's your hometown? What was it like growing up?
I am from St. Petersburg, Florida. That is the central Florida area, like Tampa. Like usually everyone asks me where you're from, I say Tampa because they'll know that before St. Pete. But I am from St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm basically a child of the 80s. I grew up during the 80s. So all the fun pulp culture and weirdness that is the 80s is really what made me who I am today. I remember kind of spinning this into gaming. My early memories were going to the actual arcade and spending my weekends there, you know, pumping quarters into the arcade machines. I mean, things like Pac-Man, obviously, Donkey Kong, Zaxxon, Defender, all those early 80 games is really what kind of sparked my love for wanting to get into gaming. And then I always say Christmas 1985, that was my Christmas Story Red Ryder BB gun moment, because my mother, unbeknownst to me, got me the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Edition.
Ooh.
So I got that, Rob the Robot, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt, along with the light gun accessory as well. And to this day, still the greatest gift I think I've ever gotten outside of my children. But that was the moment for me. And I think, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months after that, I got Super Mario Brothers, and I was hooked from that point. And Nintendo was obviously a huge influence for me early on as far as console gaming and all that goes. Went through the 80s. I guess I'm talking about my life now. So went through the 80s, obviously graduated high school, early 90s. I went to Florida State University for a cup of coffee. I didn't last very long because I was young and a knucklehead, but didn't last there long. And my mother, again, who is a huge part of my life and made me the person that I am, she gave me an ultimatum. Either, because I dropped out of school. So I had an ultimatum. It was either you stay home and you get a freaking job and go to junior college and make something of yourself, or you join the United States Navy. I chose to join the Navy, which turned out to be probably the smartest decision I've ever made in my life, because that gave me structure, that gave me discipline. It made me, you know, respect authority, be on time for things, just all the things that to me now, I think, or I just take for granted as that's what you're supposed to do. But I'm realizing not a lot of people have that in their lives. But I joined the Navy, went through boot camp out here in San Diego, California. And after boot camp, I went to Japan, and I lived in Japan for 3 years. And definitely eye-opening moment for me, just the culture, learning the language. I used to darn near be fluent in Japanese at one point, not so much anymore. But just that whole experience being over there, being in the Navy, pretty much seeing the world. I've been to Hong Kong, Singapore, the Philippines, Russia, Australia, Thailand, Persian Gulf. I've been to Somalia. I've been to Kenya, just all these different places in the world that I got to go and experience these cultures and meet these different people. It's just really made me who I am. So I bring up being in the Navy, doing in San Diego, because after my 3 years in Japan, I came back to San Diego. I took orders at Miramar, and the first person I met was my wife.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Ironically enough, almost 26 years ago now. Wow. And it was a wrong number. She was calling another boy on base. And this is 11 o'clock. I always tell the story because it's crazy, but it's true. It's 11 o'clock at night. I only know one person in California, and that was a friend of mine that was on the ship with me when I was in Japan. And we were hanging out that day. He drops me off. It's 11 o'clock at night. He called me for whatever reason. We're talking on the phone, talking to him on the phone. I hang up the phone, and I kid you not, 30 seconds later, the phone rings again, thinking it's my friend. No, it's my wife. And she's looking for another guy on base. And I'm like, you have the wrong number. Because back then, that was a thing. You could have wrong numbers, busy signals, the whole thing. So I don't even know what I said, what I did, but we agreed to meet the next day. We've been together ever since. But the irony of that is, if I was on the phone 30 seconds longer, she would have got a busy signal, and then she would have dialed the wrong number. I never would have met her.
Wow.
I always tell that crazy story because it's just funny how life works and the little moments that can completely just change your life. Like, who knows where I am right now or what I'd be doing without my wife being by my side and being my rock and being very supportive of all the different things that I've done. So you're getting to know me. So I guess continuing on that. So I'm in the Navy. I'm still in the Navy when I met my wife, did a couple more years in the Navy. I wound up moving to Virginia. I was over in Virginia for a while. And again, these weird moments that happen, I had zero intention of getting out of the military. I actually really like being in the military, and I like being in the Navy. And I married my wife, and I was supposed to go on a 6-month deployment with my ship because I would always come back over here to the West Coast to get on the USS Constellation. I was a part of the VF2, Top Gun. You know, people say I do the danger zone thing. So I was literally in the Top Gun hangar when I was in the military. There was a funny thing that happened. I was supposed to get shore duty, and I wanted to do shore duty on the West Coast in California because obviously I just got married. My wife is out here in San Diego, and the military decided, because they had moved my squadron over to Virginia, that if I was going to do shore duty, I only had two options. It was going to be in Jacksonville, Florida, or is it going to be in Norfolk, Virginia, which is where I was at the time. I was at NES Oceana. And the only way I could come back to the West Coast is if I got on the ship again. So at 2:00 in the morning, I'm on the USS Constellation sitting out in San Diego Bay. I called on back then what was called a POTS line. I called my wife, woke her up in the middle of the night. She was still living with her parents at the time, and told her, you know what? I think I'm going to get out, because I didn't want to be on the ship again. I just got married. So I decided to get out. And again, turned out to be another smart decision. Even though as much as I love the military and everything, it was the right decision. I got out, moved out here to San Diego with like $2,000 in my pocket. My wife and I got our first apartment, and we just built our life from there. And here we are now as far as career goes. But I got lucky again, got out, and I got a job at Sony, at the Sony Technology Center in San Diego. And I took a job on the help desk because when I was in the Navy, I started dipping my toe in IT. Back then, it was Windows 3.11 and I 95 was just getting ready to come out. And, you know, I'd done some stuff on the Unix side, things like that. So I was starting to get interest in IT. And I took this job on the help desk, did that, transition from the help desk at Sony. I started doing desktop support. When I was at Sony, then I got into operations and was working in the data center. And then I transitioned that. I started working for San Diego County, basically doing the same thing. And I basically just built my career up to where it was this around 2005. I was doing sysadmin stuff, things like that. But then again, another break. I always remember these moments. I had another break where I was offered to join the security team for where I was working. Now I'm actually working up in Orange County. And I had a great mentor. Honestly, probably the best group of people I've ever worked with in my life was those people that I worked with on the security team back then. And basically our head of security, I'll never forget the words he told me because I still pass this on to this day. And now my current role where I'm hiring people and bringing people in is, I don't care what you know. I just care that you're willing to learn. It's that simple. As long as you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn, it doesn't matter what your current skill set is because those things can be taught to you. So long story short on that. Yeah. So built my career up with security, like I said, starting with an 05 and just kind of systematically went up the ladder now to where now I'm actually security architect for the company I work with in San Diego. And I've been doing at this company now, 3 years now. And it's great. Great place to work. Great people I get to work with. Like I said, I'm more of in a leadership, mentorship role now with people working under me, but that's my professional career for the most part, trying to keep this short and sweet. Gaming, ironically enough, I started getting into that around when this was around 01. My first E3 was 2001, which ironically enough was the Xbox's first E3. And I actually even found some old pictures where you can see me at the Xbox booth. They had Halo Combat Evolved there. It was buggy on the show floor. And I remember because I went to E3 And I fudged my way in. I had no business being there. I fudged my way in to be able to get in. But I was there for Nintendo. Huge Nintendo guy. I was there for the GameCube, Luigi's Mansion, the whole thing. And Xbox was just a thing. I'll go see this Xbox thing. And I remember going to that booth. And I remember playing Halo. And I go, this is never going to work. This is never going to work. Microsoft is making a huge mistake. This is not going to work. This game is buggy. This Xbox thing, none of this is going to work. And again, I'm trying to keep this short, but I bought the original Xbox on launch day by accident. I just happened to be in CompUSA on launch day, and there was a line outside, and I just happened to walk in, and I was able to just literally walk in as the store opened and grab an Xbox. And I remember I got Dead or Alive 3, and I was like, I'll get that Halo game. I did not touch Halo for a month after I bought it. And then I was like, all right, I guess I might as well try it. And then obviously the rest is history when it comes to that. But yeah, it's just funny how things work out. So, I'm big in the Xbox community. I used to email Major Nelson all the time back then, and he would actually respond. But I would still go to E3 and things like that. But it was 2005 that Danny Pena Godfrey started Gamertag Radio, and he would spam the Team Xbox forums, and I would listen. And there was also another podcast called DreamStation.cc, and I would listen to them as well. And these were kind of the gaming shows I would listen to. There was a couple others, but those were the two main ones. And I was just listening to them as a fan. And then it was in 2006, and this was probably June of 06, up in there somewhere. Chris Palladino, who's at DreamStation.cc, and Danny Pena, who's at Gamertag Radio, are on a video. They went to Redmond up in Seattle to the Xbox campus, and there was a Lord of the Rings event, and they're being interviewed. And I remember, oh my God, these are the guys I listen to all the time. You get to go to Xbox? You get to do this? That is cool. I would really like to do that too. So one of my friends at the time, I messaged him like, oh my God, you got to see this video. Hey, we got to go do this. Let's make our own gaming podcast, right? And we decided to do that. It was called The Old School Gamers. It was terrible. And I emailed Chris and Danny, and I was like, hey, we are starting our own podcast. Do you have any tips? Chris got back to me the next day, and I'll never forget this too. It was a Saturday morning. He hopped on a Skype call with me, and he literally walked me through everything that I needed to do to be able to podcast, all the tools, everything, how to record, all that stuff, microphone, everything. And that's how we kind of got started. Danny wound up hitting me up a few weeks later because I think he was on vacation or something, and basically the same thing. So again, trying to long story short this, we started doing a podcast. Like I said, the first one, Old School Gamers, wasn't that great, but I built a friendship with Danny and Chris out of that. And then I wound up transitioning into doing another podcast with my still good friend to this day, Jay Van Beveren and Robbie Edwards, called Uncle Gamer. And we started that July, August of 06, up in there somewhere. And I did that from 06 until 2011. But during that time, Danny and I became really great friends. We'd go to E3, collaborate together, do all this fun stuff. Chris actually took a job with Xbox. He was on the community team. And in 07, he invited me up to Redmond for Crackdown. So that was like the first, and I to this day, I don't even know why he did it, other than I guess because he knew me, but I had no business being there. And that was kind of my first exposure going up to Xbox. I got to meet Major Nelson. There's actually a video that's online now where I'm playing Guitar Hero and I'm screwing it up and all this stuff. But went up there for Crackdown, got to see Xbox Live, just all those things. And that kind of catapulted me into doing more stuff in the gaming industry. EA, I wound up getting in contact with people over EA, contact with people over at Activision. Like I remember I was one of the first community people to go to Infinity Ward and see the thing that was called Call of Duty 3 that is now Call of Duty 4. And this thing called Modern Warfare, you might have heard of it or whatever, but I remember being one of the first people to see it. And we didn't really understand the magnitude of how important that game was going to be to this very day, obviously, right? But that was a special time back then for me, 07, 08 era, a lot, because you think about all the games that came out in 2007, I mean, like, wow. And I got to be a part of that and really had no idea what the frick I was doing, but it was a lot of fun. Like I said, started building up a lot of friendships. Danny obviously was a great friend during that time, a lot of pointers, a lot of help over that time. Now, fast forward from that, I'm doing Uncle Gamer. We start this website called Talking About Games, and we have all this stuff going on, and everything's going great. Going to E3, going to all these events. I'm happy. In my mind, I've seen and done it all at this point. So my good friend Jay actually took a job with EA around this. This is around 09, 2010 up in there somewhere. He took a job with EA, so he left. I continued doing Uncle Gamer for a little bit after that, and then it just wasn't fun to me anymore because Jay was just a good friend who had a good rapport. So I actually stopped. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore. So I think it was around October of 2011. I stopped like cold turkey and didn't do it for like a year and a half. And then ironically enough, Bioshock Infinite came out in 2013. Bioshock Infinite was something that Ken Levine, I just adored. Like going back to 07, Ken Levine, I went to a behind closed door meeting at the Santa Monica E3. He let me play Bioshock. Like handed me the control, let me play it. So I'll never forget it. But anyways, Infinite comes out. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm still friends with Danny and all these guys during this time, even though I'm not actively podcasting. And they asked me to come on to talk about Bioshock Infinite because I was a huge fan. And I came on. The feedback that they got from the community was really good. And long story short, they asked me, hey, would I like to come on, like be a part of Gamertag Radio? I was very hesitant to do it. I was like, I don't think so. Because at this point, I'm good. I'm out. I don't, I'm focusing on family stuff and all that. I was like, if I come on, can't guarantee I'll be on every week. We'll see. Well, wind up being on full time from day one after that. And from that point, we just created myself, Danny, Pete, Mandy. We just created the just great family, really. It's a brotherhood, sisterhood, and just a lot of fun over the last few years, covering gaming, going to events, E3, just all these things. And all this stuff has culminated up to where I am now. And I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'll stop there in case there's anything you want to say.
That was the best "what is your hometown" answer I've ever got.
Yeah. See, I tell you, I talk a lot.
That is amazing. I'm never gonna get an 18-minute answer to "where is your hometown" from ever again, and I don't know how to top that. No, what's really great about you, and I really love talking to you about your passion. Like you can just tell that like you're excited about life, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people feel about you in the games industry. You're very much known as a dude who just has this kind of energy, and I absolutely love that comes from just who you are as a person. And I'm sure some people are like, why is Steve letting him talk for 18 minutes from where's his hometown? And that's why is because I love that passion. I absolutely, there's no one else in the industry that matches you for that kind of passion for life.
Oh, I appreciate that. And yeah, I know I'm a very long-winded person. So it's like I get on a roll, I just keep going. So I figured, hey, you're going to ask me all this stuff anyways. I might as well just get it all out there. Now
we have 40 minutes of actually talking about who Parris is behind them. I'm sure you've told those same stories a billion times on a billion shows. So let's get into the stuff that you don't talk about on a billion shows, because that's what I'm interested in. So let's roll back to the beginning of arcades. What was it about arcades that drew you in? Was it getting away from a home life? Was it something to do? Was it boredom? What were you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it was something to do. And then you also have to think, I mean, we're talking late 70s into the early 80s where this video game thing is pretty much brand new. Yeah. So it's this interactive thing that you're getting in control. It's almost like a digital cartoon or whatever you want to call it. So there was this attraction to it. Like, I used to get in trouble because I would take my lunch money and instead of using it for lunch, I would go to the 7-Eleven and I would play Popeye and Pac-Man. Really? That's what I would do.
Wow.
Because, I was a huge Pac-Man. Funny story. Back in those days, my family, my parents, we went to the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. Oh. And there was a Pac-Man Expo there. Okay. And I'm doing air quotes. I got lost at the World's Fair, but I wasn't lost because I knew where I was and I was at the Pac-Man Expo. And eventually they found me. But yeah, my parents panicked because they couldn't find me for hours because I just went there and that's what I was doing.
What are you talking about?
Lost at the World's Fair.
I've been lost at this Pac-Man machine for 3 days. Yeah. I don't know. It's so weird. Wow.
Which ironically enough, the road trip there was the first time I saw Donkey Kong because we stayed at like some Sheraton or something. Mm-hmm. And in like the hotel lobby, they had like a little tiny arcade in there and they had Donkey Kong. And that was the first time I saw Donkey Kong. It was in 82. See, these are like the little memories I have because it's just things that stick out to me.
Those little memories are what this is all about, man. And, you know, so there's one thing I learned about you. First of all, I have to say thank you for your service because I am absolutely thrilled that you were someone who was in the Navy. Actually, believe it or not, probably a lot of people don't know about me. You had the job that I wanted had I not been disabled. Like, I really wanted to be in the Top Gun-ish area of the life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was a very great way to spend your life. So I'm very proud of you for that. But fate seems to play such a big role in your life. Like, you definitely...
Oh, it does.
You know, and I'd love to touch on this if you'll go with me on this. You know, do
Absolutely.
you feel like fate is something that you make, or do you think fate's something that happens to you?
I joke all the time that I'm in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Because things seem to happen that to me I'm like, wow, really? Me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I having these opportunities? But I do lean towards you make your own fate.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of the opportunities and things that I've had, I try to do things the right way. I try to be respectful of people. I understand what hard work is, and I'm more than willing to put in the hard work to do the things, you know, that I want to do. I've always been a goal-oriented person. I see something that I want to achieve, and I basically lay out the project plan on how do I go from here to get to where I ultimately want to be? Yeah. What are the steps that I need to take? So when I even talk about, like, just in my professional career with security, that was something I wanted to do. So it's like, how do I achieve that? How do I get the skills and everything that I need? And yes, luck plays into that. Mentorship plays into that, of course. But once you get that foot in the door, it's on me. It's on you to be able to take advantage of that. No one's going to hand you anything in life when it comes to that. So yeah, I definitely lean towards you make your own fate in that way, but you will need help along the way. Everybody does. I don't think there's anyone that's ever graced this planet that has not had some help along the way.
Have you ever tried to sort of mentor or talk to somebody who's kind of got that attitude of, I did this all on my own, I'm amazing, and tried to sort of get that across to them that, man.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, in this sense. So let me say this. I try to surround myself with, you are who you associate with. I think that's the best way to put it, right? Yep. So I don't associate myself with people that live in negativity or live in just pure arrogance. I like to surround myself with like-minded people that are going to be hardworking and want to achieve those goals. But at the same time, of course, I've encountered people where I see potential in them, and I will offer my perspective on things, you know, kind of my life experience. And hey, here's something that I did, or here's where I think you could go. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, you know, and that's okay. But I do think that's just being humans. We should always try and pay it forward with anything in life. If you can ever offer some advice to the next generation, you should absolutely do that. But like I said before, I don't think anyone gets anywhere in life alone. And if you think you do, then you're being, in my opinion, being very short-sighted.
Absolutely. And you touched on one of my absolute favorite quotes in life of who you choose to be around you tells you who you really are. That's one of my favorite quotes in life. Have you found that figuring out who those right people are has been a challenge?
I would say when I was younger, yes. Yeah. And like I brought up my mother before, it's funny when you think back now that I'm older and I find myself saying a lot of the same things to my children. I'm like, my God, I sound like my mom. But, you know, she would always tell me as a teenager, because look, I was a complete knucklehead as a teenager. I call myself a horrible kid. Some people probably will say, no, you weren't that bad, but I was a horrible kid. My mom raised me. My father was not in the picture, and she was my mom and my dad, so to speak. And I gave her hell all along the way. But she would always tell me, don't worry what other people think. Worry about you. She would always tell me that. Basically, you can't control how other people are going to think of you, perceive of you, or whatever. You can only control you. She would tell me this all the time. And to your point about who you associate with, I was always associating with the wrong crowd. I was associating with the easy crowd, the crowd that would, hey, let's skip school. Oh, let's do that. You know, it's like, because that was fun and easy to do, instead of the people that were willing to put in the hard work. Right. So it took me, and this is where I think the military really came in that respect, where that taught me what hard work was about. That taught me what discipline was about. That taught me what being respectful to your fellow man or woman is about. And once you understand that as a philosophy in life, then you naturally are going to gravitate to other people that think that way. And look, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think it's right, but who am I to say, right? But that's who I try to associate with. So even applying this back to gaming, if you notice who I navigate and who I converse with online, it's basically those type of people, because if you're the type of person that's going to be online, being disrespectful, being boisterous, everything's about me, I'm out.
Yeah.
Because that's not who I am. And I don't want your actions to be perceived onto me.
I appreciate you talking to me anyway, so thanks for keeping me in that group.
Yeah, you're funny.
I love that, and I know respect is very important to you, and it's part of who you are as a human being. When you're talking about respect in this industry, it very much is earned. You do have to really get known in this industry. You have to be respected, and let's face it, if you step wrong in this industry, and people will let you know it. And, I think that's part of social media. How have you been so far navigating those waters of respect and trying to keep those closest to you also out of the trolls of the internet?
It's funny because I literally had this conversation yesterday with a couple gentlemen where I've learned to get out of the mud is what I call it. Right. And I would say I've learned that lesson here in probably the last 12 to 18 months where not that I was being a troll, I like to have fun with my friends. Yes. And if you see my banter back and forth with like Khalif or Danny or something, you obviously even see that to this day. But, I would like to have fun online and joke around. But I've realized now, especially now after some of the things that I've done in the gaming space, that I need to set the example. Yeah. Instead of being part of the problem, so to speak. Right. So when it comes to internet trolls, I used to try to actually reason with internet trolls, and it's fruitless. It's an impossible task. So I stop engaging with that. I am actually very selective on who I engage with online. You may see me tweet a lot. You may say certain things. It's actually pretty rare that I'll actually go back in the comments and read what anyone says, because I've learned that there's a lot of people that will say and do things just to get a rise out of you. They just want a response. So they will try and say the meanest, most hurtful, most ridiculous, over the top thing just to get you to engage with them and to respond. And I'm simply not going to do that because, like I said, I want to set the example online that you don't have to live in the mud. You don't have to argue over silly pieces of plastic and which one is the best when they're all great. It's as simple as that. I can't worry about what people may, again, going back to my mom, what people may think of me, because anyone that knows me knows my character. They know who I am. So just because you might see a tweet and I'm holding a picture of something I got, that does not define who I am. Like, it's not even the shot, the Cyberpunk chair is over there, as an example. People love to make a big thing out of that. Yep. It is what it is. But I know who I am and I'm proud of who I am. And the advice I give anyone when it comes to social media is it's a tool that can be used for good or it can be used for bad. I try to use it for good. I try to use it. I've established somewhat of a following, I guess, and I will talk about things that are on my mind, social issues that I think may be important or fun things in gaming or pop culture that I find interesting. I'm going to talk about those things because that's who I am. And that defines me. And either you like it or you don't. I can't worry myself over that. Because like I said before, I know who I am and I'm proud of who I am. So again, long-winded answer to what you're saying is with the trolls, I just don't engage with them. Let them talk. Like you kill them. If I do engage, the rare times I do, I kill them with kindness. That's what I try to do.
Best way to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all you can do. And I will say this, I have reached out to a few of I don't even say trolls. I will just say I've reached out to a few people that have seemingly had a serious problem with me online. And my offer has always been the same. Let's talk in DM. Let's hop on a phone call or a Discord. And you can talk to me privately and ask me anything you want. Because the thing that I've learned is social media is a lot of performance art where people say things that they don't really mean. And when you talk to them privately, it's always a different story. Going back to the respect thing really quick, the question I always ask right off the top when I have these private conversations is, do we know each other? Person always responds, no. Okay, we don't know each other. why do you think it's okay to be disrespectful to me when I have never been disrespectful to you? And the response is always, you're right, I apologize. Because again, in life, in real life, face-to-face human interaction, you don't talk this way to people.
No.
It's very rare that you see people be this disrespectful and over the top in a face-to-face setting. When you get someone that does not have an audience to perform for, they're themselves. And they're not going to be disrespectful. You can have a problem with me and we can talk it out. And I've done that, which is fine. But don't start the conversation with the silly memes and the name calling and, trying to attack physical appearance and all these other weird things that you're basically projecting your own insecurities onto me. Because I'm not doing that to you. I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. If I'm showing you respect, I expect respect in return. If you're not going to give me respect in return, then I'm simply not going to engage with you. And it's that simple.
Smartest way to play it. What have you learned so far about when you get a cyberpunk? For those of you who are listening who don't know, this man basically became the embodiment of cyberpunk for quite a while. And also, with Xbox, and you end up in your position where you get accused of favoritism, which is weird in our industry because we're allowed to be fans. We're humans. We're three-dimensional. You have your likes and dislikes. And so how have you managed to navigate those waters of being who you want to be, despite when people are trying to tell you shouldn't be that?
Yeah, let's start with the Cyberpunk thing, because that's one that I haven't talked too much about publicly. Yeah. Had a couple viral moments starting back in 2018 with that game, the demo they showed at E3. Got to know a lot of people over there at CD Projekt Red over the years. Still, I consider some friends and, we converse and the whole thing. The game is the game. It is what it is. Yes, I wound up being a part of basically their marketing of that game. Yes, I got the chair. Yes, I hosted the launch event on Twitter Gaming, which was kind of my first big hosting thing, which I'll be forever appreciative of.
Knocked it out of the park.
I appreciate that. The thing about Cyberpunk is I personally look at it as leadership forced them to put that game out too early. From my point of view, the game should still not be out, right? And for whatever reason, board, fine, I don't know. But what happened is you had people like myself and others that quote unquote got the chair and previewed the game, because I did preview, I previewed the game back in June, the whole thing, where they took that as fuel to be angry at CD Projekt Red and say, well, I'm mad at you too, because you're one of the reasons I got excited about the game. It's fair and it's not fair. I will own my excitement and I have no regrets for my excitement for that game. You're gosh darn right. They sent me the chair and I was happy as hell to get it. Of course I was, because at that time I was super excited about the game. I thought Cyberpunk and everyone else in the industry, by the way, that was a flipping layup. Yes. That was a layup. Coming off The Witcher 3, which is honestly one of my favorite games of all time, which is kind of felt built into the hype of it. Nobody expected what we got with that final game. So the one thing that, and people don't want to put in the actual effort to go see what people have said post-launch. But if anyone goes and looks at what I've said on Kind of Funny post-launch of the game, I ripped them a new one. This is completely unacceptable. It's actually crazy. And I've actually been dipping my toe back into playing it recently, just kind of to see, but still it's not where it should be. I cold turkey stopped playing that game in December until now because it was that broken, and that's not what it should have been. But people see the fandom and they immediately want to equate it to, well, you're bought and sold and all that. No, if anyone actually looks at my content and the things that I say, I'm one of those people that I'm actually pretty critical of the things that I really like, because I really like them. So I'm actually going to be even more critical of those. So yeah, when Cyberpunk did come out, I was extremely critical of it, but nobody knew, because they carefully crafted the preview content of it, so nobody knew what the final game was going to be. There's this weird thing, like even with the Xbox stuff, obviously, I'm on XCast. I've hosted a couple Xbox events. They immediately equate that to, well, you're not going to be critical of Xbox because you work closely with them. My response to that would be, I've been lucky enough to work closely with Xbox because they respect the fact that I'm not afraid to give my opinion. I just call it like I see it. That's just how I've always been in life. And it goes back to what I was saying before. I can't control if you want to believe that or not. I know who I am. I know what my opinions are. Like, it's so funny, like, to bring the little silly console war stuff into it. I have people that get so upset thinking I have this weird bias against PlayStation, when it's like the complete opposite. Go check my stats in Destiny. Thousands of hours on the PlayStation 4 I've played. My favorite games of the last generation were on the PlayStation 4. One of my favorite games this very year is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which I think will be a Game of the Year contender. Miles Morales, which I actually was critical of, thinking, this game should be on PlayStation 5. Once I actually played it at launch, tears were coming out of my eyes at the end, because that's how much that game grabbed me at the end. And that just goes to the whole overall thing of, and I know I'm slightly tangenting this console war stuff, is we got to get over this stuff, man. Yeah. Gaming, I said this probably a couple months ago, like, I forget what happened, but I went on a little rant. I made a little video. I was like, be a fan of games. Don't be a fan of brands. Be a fan of games. If there's great games on PlayStation, go love those games. If there's great games on Xbox, go love them. Nintendo, ColecoVision, wherever you want to play them. Be a fan of that. Don't be a fan of, well, if it's not on PlayStation, then you're the enemy and all. It's like, come on, really? That's, I don't know. It's silly to me. And it's what, me personally, and you can correct me where I'm wrong, I don't think the gaming industry is taken as seriously as it should be, because I think our community, and especially on the social media side, comes off being very immature, in my opinion, with a lot of this stuff. I think gaming can be held up as art. I really do. I think there's some fantastic titles. There's some fantastic storytelling that look, Psychonauts 2. I don't know if you played and completed right now. Go play that game and that story. And it's all about mental health. And the way that Double Fine crafted that story is freaking brilliant. I love it. I absolutely love it. Like I said before, going back to Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, it was damn near like a Pixar movie come to life. That's how visually stunning that game was to me. I mean, there's so many other examples out there over the years of games that we should be celebrating these things, not arguing over who has the highest pixel count or whatever. Like, I tell you right now, my game of the year, Death's Door. I don't even know what's going to change my mind on that. That's my game of the year right now. And no one can tell me different, because gaming is an individual preference. There's something out there for everyone. And for me, Death's Door hit the right notes for me with just the music, the atmosphere, the premise, the whole thing, that I absolutely adore that game. And that's a $20 game made by two people.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So let's celebrate that stuff. Let's not argue over this influencer got this thing, or he likes PlayStation or whatever. Who cares? At the end of the day, we're all gamers. We all love gaming. That's why we're all a part of this stuff, right? Because we love gaming. And there's so many great games that are out there, even during this pandemic with all the delays. There's still been so many great experiences during 2021. I would rather talk about that than argue over, is Starfield going to be exclusive? It's like, come on, who cares? Yeah, you know, exactly. At the end of the day.
And, you know, and that's one of the things I think is interesting, is this is a mental health podcast. This is not a gaming podcast. And so for the people who are not gamers, who are sort of listening and going, yeah, this is why I don't love gamers. What do you think got us here? How did we get to the point that
social media?
Well, fair. But how do you think we got to the point that people are such stands for this brand or this person, and it doesn't matter what they do or what they say? It's the loyalty is so built in such a hardcore fashion that it doesn't matter what happens. And to give you a brief example, our mutual friend Greg Miller, he's been on this podcast, sitting in your chair there, and great guy. How Greg and I met was literally where he mocked a disabled person in a wheelchair, and he got called out on it. I called him out on it, and that was the number one thing that led us to our friendship, was when he was like, you know what, I messed up. And he said that, and he said it at least on 3 or 4 podcasts that I've heard. Yeah,
I've heard one when he said it. Yep.
Yeah, and literally you'll get people who respond like, you did nothing wrong. And he's literally saying, I did something wrong. And people will still stand and be like, no, that's not. How do you think we got here?
It's interesting. And that's why I immediately jumped into social media, because I do think being anonymous on the internet fuels a lot of this stuff, right? Because we've always, even back in the 90s, you've had, Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo and all that. But the dirty secret was, I had the Super Nintendo, my buddy had the Sega Genesis, and guess what? We went over each one's houses and played all the games. even though I may have had a preference to one, he had a preference to the other, we still enjoyed the games. I kind of equate what I see right now happening to sports fandom. I'll just take football as an example. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so I'm always going to root for the Bucs, and I'm always going to talk trash to other teams and all that. But I think what's happened with gaming is because gaming actually brings us together. That's the funny part about all of this. Gaming brings so many different people from so many different backgrounds together that we're all colliding on this anonymous internet platform. And then you have people that want to make their voice the loudest voice and to be heard. And when that happens, that's when the absurd, ridiculous comments start coming out and the attention seekers and all these things, to where it's now become one thing I love to do. I like to sit in on Twitter Spaces, or I'll sit on the random stream or the podcast. I don't say nothing. I just listen. And it's amazing how some of them have built up this narrative in their head that you have to like one, or if you like the other, then you're wrong for liking the other one, or you're the quote unquote enemy and I must make fun of you now and all of that. And I'm telling you, like I was saying before, all of this comes back to the fact of being anonymous on the internet, not having that face-to-face conversation, because you're not going to say these things to someone directly. You're just simply not. And that's especially, I think that's been heightened here in the last 18 months with the pandemic, where we really can't gather. We haven't had a PAX. We haven't had an E3 where we get together and have those face-to-face meetings and conversations. And I think it's just heightened it even more. So, yeah, going back to your original question, I think a lot of it has to do with the internet and social media. And I just think it allows people to say the most outlandish things they possibly can. And I think it all comes back to attention. I really do.
Attention and the need for validation. And
validation is a great one. I think that's part of it too. You want to validate your purchase. You want to feel good about the $500 that you spent on that console and the $60, $70 you spent on those games. So you want other people to validate that you're right. And then you want to mock the people that disagree with you because it makes you feel better.
Completely agreed. In fact, I think the pedestal is like the most dangerous thing we've got going right now. Is when you put something up on such a high pedestal that it has no place but to fall. And I think that's what happened with things like Cyberpunk, your favorite person who's out there. I think, we build these things up in our minds. And how do you, Parris, stop yourself from getting to the point where you've hyped up the expectations of something in life to the point that, it's never going to meet that high of a bar?
Well, ironically enough, I think I did that with Cyberpunk, where I put it up on such a high pedestal. Like I said, I thought that game was going to be a layup. I'm like, there's no way this thing's going to fail. It's going to be great. I'm going to dedicate my content creation around this game. And I'm going to have all these conversations and do all these fun, cool things. And then it didn't live up to it and it fell off the ledge. And it was a big disappointment. I've learned in life to take the successes along with the failures, just life in general. So I try to be very grounded when it comes to that. I try to not get too high. I try to not get too low when it comes to that. And I think it's human nature that some things are going to bum you out more than others. Some things you're going to be a little more excited about than others. But I try to. I'm a very logical person. Like Spock is my favorite character ever in sci-fi because he deals in logic. Everything is logical to him, right? And that's how I always try to perceive things. I try to look, and this is maybe just my networking and IT background. Everything to me is ones and zeros. There has to be a start, a middle, and a finish to everything. And how do you navigate that and get to those? That's how I perceive everything. So like you're saying, when I'm thinking about trying to keep expectations in check, I try to logically think about something ahead of time. Like, how great is this going to be really, right? What am I really going to be able to get out of this? And most times I'm usually happily surprised by something exceeding what I've set as an expectation. And, for me anyways, I just think that's a good way to navigate life.
I would totally agree with that. And although I think you mentioned the key word in a lot of philosophical debates, happiness. Do you think that we are granted the right to try to be happy, or do you think we are granted the right to be happy in and of itself?
No, I think, in the real world, we're always fighting to be happy because the real world is a brutal place.
Yeah.
It is. We, the United States of America, we're in a bubble.
Yeah.
This is where I say, me being in the Navy and seeing a lot of the world and going to a lot of third world countries has opened my eyes to what, as an example, I used to go on missionary things with a local church down in Mexico, and we build houses. We would do that over the summers. It's been a while since I've done it, but that was something where you're going to some of the poorest places I've ever seen. And you're helping people that, I mean, my kids couldn't even fathom living in those type of conditions, right? And it brings perspective to that life isn't fair. Life is very brutal. I mean, I don't know the last time you've been to Los Angeles. The homeless problem out here right now is out of control. And these are people that you want to help, that you want to see succeed. But life, man, it gets in the way. And this is in the United States of America. Imagine what it's like in some third world country. It's doubly as hard, if not more. So just going back to what you're saying is we're always fighting to find happiness in something, but real life is going to get in the way a lot. And it's whatever you can try and overcome and achieve is the ultimate goal. And we're not always going to do it.
No.
It's just the reality of it. Everything that I built and succeeded in life, this house I'm in, my wife, my 3 kids, we have a good, happy suburban life. Could be gone tomorrow. It could. Out of my control too. Nothing that I've necessarily done. Something could happen. I mean, look at what this pandemic has shown us. Yeah. I mean, look how many lives it's disrupted. I mean, good, hardworking, honest people lost, invested in the American dream. I'm going to create my own small business and do my own thing. Gone, just like that. And it's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. So when you think of it that way, I just try to appreciate everything that I have and understand that every day is a blessing when it comes to that. You can only do so much to when some things are just simply out of your control because life isn't fair and it never will be.
How do you grapple with situations that are out of your control? How do you center yourself and find that zen place of being able to be like, okay, this is out of my control. What can I control?
I would say that I have my good moments and I have my bad moments when it comes to that. I think, again, that's just human nature. I'm not a perfect being. Some people would tell you I have a temper because I do. I've mellowed and matured over the years to where it doesn't really come out anymore, but it's still there. And when life serves you some lemons, I sometimes you're not going to respond in the best way, but I try my best, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, all we can do is ourselves, and really resiliency is what I like to think in these situations. Yeah,
it's a good word.
Yeah. What is your opinion of true strength? Do you think it is being able to handle a situation, or do you think it's being able to turn it upside down and into something positive?
I do think it's being able to handle a situation because not everything you're going to be able to turn into a positive. Some things will ultimately just become life lessons. And you have to understand that, be able to deal with it and basically move on. Sometimes pick up the pieces and start from scratch. It's just how it is. Yeah. I definitely think that, like I said before, not everything in life is going to be fair. So not everything, whether it's in your control or not, you're going to be able to turn it into your favor. Sometimes you just got to take the loss.
Were you thinking about a life lesson there when you had that pause right there?
Yeah, I was. Definitely.
Something you want to talk about?
No,
Okay.
No, definitely not. No,
All
no,
right.
no.
So what are some good life lessons that you do feel comfortable talking about?
Life lessons that I feel comfortable talking about. I would say the one life lesson that I've pretty much talked about this the whole time is, do you want like a specific story or just a philosophy? Is that what you're asking?
That is your choice, sir.
Because I'm trying to think of a specific story.
So what's a specific story you don't normally get into on gaming shows?
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. Actually, this is a work one. I'll give this one. So years ago, when I was a young lad, I was a young security engineer, I had a major project that we were doing where we basically overhauled all our firewalls to like new hardware, different OS, the whole thing. So we basically had to take everything out of our current configurations and migrate them over to new hardware, new OS, new configurations, and rebuild everything from scratch. This was like a major project that we were doing. So in the process of doing that, because we had to do this during downtime over a weekend, we're actually quote unquote going live with it. I managed to take down the entire Orange County network, like all of it, everything.
Oh no.
And I panicked, like thought I was going to have a panic attack. I'm going to get fired. This is it. I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. The whole thing. And again, I talk about my boss at the time. He was just one of my great mentors. He told me, don't panic, because ultimately you will resolve this issue. No matter how bad it looks right now, as long as you don't panic, you will fix the issue. And guess what? I fixed the issue. And we fixed it and we resolved it. I didn't just do it by myself. We did it as a team. But the life lesson that I took out of that is always, no matter how daunting a task looks, always try to take a deep breath, count to 10, lay out the steps of what you need to do to troubleshoot and fix the issue or resolve the issue, because it will get resolved at some point. There's not going to be an issue that will just be forever. There's going to be some resolution to it, right? Yep. And you always have to, you can't just look at the short term. You got to look at the long term. I always try to look ahead when it comes to stuff like that. And that's been a valuable life lesson for me, not only professionally, but also personally as well. When, like we were just talking about, when, life does serve you some lemons, try to not panic over it. Try to look at it that you will get past this. You will figure this out. You just have to have that in the back of your head that this isn't impossible. There's always going to be a resolution, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's the other thing too. Pride is a mofo, right? So don't be afraid to say, hey, I need help with this, because someone 9 times out of 10 is going to be there to try to help you. And I think that has definitely served me well over the years.
Look for the helpers, right? That's, that's in any situation. It's interesting. We've been talking about how failures shape us, but they also let us grow and learn life lessons. Mm-hmm. Have there been recurring themes in your life or things that you've thought about where, it's sort of a harsh truth, like life isn't fair? Have there been those things you've thought of that, man, this is something I really don't want to think about, but this is a true part about life?
I'm thinking what I would want to share. There's definitely some personal things that I don't necessarily want to share. Mm-hmm. I'll say this because this has also helped me professionally. I once, a long time ago, interviewed at Qualcomm, which is out here in San Diego, and it was to be on their security team. Mm-hmm. And I remember at that time, it was the most prepared I was ever for a job interview. I mean, like ever. Yeah. They had me on a panel of 12 people grilling me all day. Nailing it. I got this. As confident as I ever could have been. I got this. I didn't get it. And I remember leaving the interview, like talking to the hiring manager. Clearly people on the team liked me. Everything was great. I'm like, I'm going to get this. I'm talking to HR. They're telling me next steps and bonuses and all this stuff. I got it. 3 weeks later, I get a call. We're giving it to someone internally. And that failure stuck with me. Like, I was pissed because like, so much so, why am I even doing this? I don't want to do this more. But if anything, that just fueled me to know it wasn't about me. It was politics. And it taught me, always be prepared. Never assume. Always be as prepared as you possibly can be for any situation that you know you're going to get yourself into. And at that point, that's all you can do. Yeah. Let the chips lie where they may, or whatever the phrase is with that, because at that point, it is literally out of my control. I've given you everything I possibly can, to be considered for that. And you passed on me. That was your mistake, not mine, because I would have been great. I would have been great there. I know I would. So the irony of that is I drive by Qualcomm not anymore with the pandemic, but when I was going in the office, I drove by Qualcomm every day going to my other job, so it's just funny, the irony of that. But ironically enough, I've not failed an interview since.
Really? Wow.
Because I go, every job that I've taken, and I don't move around a lot. I actually have here in the last couple years, just because, let me say this, you didn't really ask this one, but here's another tough thing that happened in my life.
Okay.
And it involves me professionally, but gaming factors in it a tiny bit. So I was at my job. I was at the job I was at, when was this, 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was perfectly fine there. I was lead security engineer. I'm doing my thing. They all love me. The whole thing. Everything's great. I happened to go to a dinner from one of our vendors, and it was like one of those where they're trying to sell you on a new product, and there's other people from other companies there and stuff like that. And I go to this dinner. It's down in Gaslamp, San Diego, and I'm sitting next to this guy that, and I won't name the company, but he's working for this company. He's executive VP for the company. We wind up talking. You know, he's literally giving me the sales pitch right there at dinner about how great his company is, you know, all the stuff they're doing. And it sounded very exciting. Like, wow, this is really cool. Would love for me to come up there and check it all out. Sure, I did. And wound up offering me to come work there, right? Gave me a lead role there, threw a bunch of money at me, the whole thing. I'm seeing dollar signs. I take it. I leave where I was perfectly happy and fine with no issues, and chase the money. I was freaking miserable. Miserable. Everything that I was promised turned out to not be true. Other than the money. Sure, the money was true. But just the quality, the work culture, everything about that place, it wore on me mentally. It was honestly probably the toughest 9 months of my life.
Really?
Because I absolutely, from day one of walking in there, I go, hey, I don't know if you ever watched Arrested Development or like, I've made a terrible mistake. I had that moment, and it really wore on me mentally. And the gaming aspect of it is, when I talk about the Cyberpunk viral moment, that happened during that time. And it was a very low point in my life. And again, shout out to Danny Pena. Him wanting to cheer me up was his idea to film my reaction coming out of that Cyberpunk demo, which led to all that. And like I said, I wound up only staying at that job 9 months, which then led me to where I am now. And I've never been happier. But it's funny how life will throw things at you, that adversity at you. And the irony is, as miserable as I was, I didn't let it affect my job performance. If anything, I doubled down on being the best that I could at that job, because I was not going to ever give them an excuse to say that I wasn't good enough to do this or whatever, just because I was miserable. So the long story out of that is, by the end, when I did give my resignation, they didn't want me to go. They offered me even more money to stay. And at that point, I knew never again would I ever take a job just because of the money, because it's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health and happiness just for the money, you know? So I declined. And ironically, now I make even more than I would have what they offered me. But the point is, it was no longer about the money for me. It was just about, I got to be somewhere that I'm happy. As long as my family is taken care of and I'm happy, my mental well-being is where it should be. That's all that should matter. So yeah, I would say that's definitely another life lesson for me, because for me anyways, that was the most adversity that I've ever gone through in a professional setting, where I just felt trapped in a place I absolutely hated. It was the only time in my life where I was like, I just want to quit, and I'll figure it out after I quit, because I do not want to be here.
It's amazing. I mean, especially, it takes so many of us so long to figure out that money should not be the priority over our mental health. It does take so many people until we hit rock bottom before we really realize, you know, and it sounds like you hit the bottom and you went, nope, don't want to be here. And pulled yourself back up. Yeah, definitely. Was there people in your corner that were really helping you get out of that situation and coming back out of the well and being like, yep, I like it much better up here? Yeah, like I bring up Danny as an example. Him and Pete were definitely people that were helping me. I know you know Khalif as well. He was another one. I'm just thinking from a gaming standpoint. And then obviously, you know, my family, you know, real life friends, you know, we're definitely very supportive. I mean, again, thank God for my wife. I probably would have lost my mind if it wasn't for her, because part of it was I wasn't seeing them as much, because the hours were weird and things like that. So I'm literally not seeing my family, which was something that I was used to doing. And it was one of those things of, you don't realize what you have until you don't kind of thing. And I was like, wait a minute,
I'm not, oh, no, this isn't good. This is not what I signed up for, kind of thing. Yeah.
Are you someone who really likes to have that contact time with your friends and family and having that touch point?
I realize I do now,
Yeah.
but I guess that was kind of my point. I didn't realize it at that time. You don't realize it till it's taken from you. You're like, wait a minute. Whoa, this isn't good because I'm taking it for granted because it was just a normal part of my daily life. And when it's taken from you, you realize how precious that really is to you and how much it matters.
I love how much of your story is really the human condition. It's you make a jump. Sometimes you land, sometimes you don't, but you learn from it and you go,
Yep.
You change course accordingly.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
I love that, absolutely. And I feel like we have not covered half the topics I wanted to get to you, and we're already past the hour by
I'm a
far.
talker. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm a
you're
talker.
fine. You're fascinating, and that's why I love listening to you. Is you are somebody who really does say what's on your mind, and I respect that so much.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, hey, I'm just happy you invited me to do this because you and I have interacted online, but we've really only had a chance to converse when we were both on what was that GameSpot at one time. But you're someone that I've definitely admired and respected, out here in the industry. And it's funny that you brought up Greg earlier because that was when you really kind of got on my radar, was him talking about you and and then obviously I'm following you on Twitter and you crack me up on Twitter all the time. But I mean, you're a very important person in this space, and I'm glad you're here.
Now I'm blushing. Thank you for the compliments. The check is in the mail. Make sure you don't cash that before Thursday. It's not ready yet. I would love to ask you a billion more questions. Unfortunately, I don't want to bore people with a 7-hour podcast of Steve and Parris talk about everything in life. So for now, we will wrap up with our 10 rapid fire questions. Now these are our nod to the Inside the Actors Studio, the show that really gave me the inspiration to start doing this for our industry, because there really is nothing like it. And they're just going to be easy questions. I'm not going to interject. I'm not going to try to get any more answers out of you, any other what you want to say. You can say a word, you can say a paragraph. They're all the same 10 questions for every single person on here. Are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
Here we go. What's your favorite color?
Purple.
What's your least favorite color?
Yellow.
What's the best thing you've ever tasted?
Oh my God, what is the best thing I've ever tasted? That, you know what? It was a street taco in Mexico.
Oh, sounds good. What was the worst thing you've ever tasted?
A hamburger I had in Manila in the Philippines, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't beef.
Have you ever loved?
Have I ever loved?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Have you ever hurt somebody?
Yes.
What can somebody do to earn your trust?
To earn my trust, what can you do? That's a good question. I guess I've never thought of it like what do you do to earn my trust? It always just seems like a natural thing. I mean, I can definitely think of what you can do to lose my trust for sure. That's a good question because I think you earn my trust by just being yourself. I almost feel like I'm a good read of people when it comes to that on who I should trust and who I shouldn't. That's a good one because I'm not 100% sure how to answer that.
Okay, we'll ask the reverse of it. What can somebody do to lose your trust?
Don't lie to me. I mean, it's pretty simple right there. I mean, once you lie to me, I'm out.
If someone spoke to you the way that you speak to yourself when no one else is around, would you be friends with that person?
Yes.
If you died tomorrow, what do you hope people would remember you for?
I would hope that they would think I'm a good person. I mean, I was a good husband, good father, good person.
The big question. Do you have a personal life philosophy that you would attribute to getting you where you are today?
Be respectful.
Parris, do you believe that some things are better left unsaid?
Yes.
Thank you for coming on. My name is Steve.
No, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.